Good afternoon and welcome to a special edition where we're going to be interrupting, unfortunately, Africa Today as we have special circumstances happening now on the Palestinian lands. So today is going to be a special edition and it's all going to be about what's happening in Gaza. I'm Raham Morsi and I'll be presenting tonight's, this afternoon's special edition. We're going to start off with some reports and then get into the topic itself, starting off with the main United Nations agency in Gaza saying it will have to halt aid operations within a day if fuel is not delivered, in what the organization says would mark the end of a lifeline for civilians. Here's the report.
The main United Nations agency in Gaza says it will have to halt aid operations within a day if fuel is not delivered, and what the organization says would mark the end of a lifeline for civilians. While some aid had reached Gaza through Egypt, those deliveries included food, water and medicine, but not fuel. Israel has refused to allow fuel to enter Gaza since Hamas' attack on the 7th of October, saying it would only be used by the group to fuel its fight against Israel. Asked how long the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East UNRWA could last without fuel, the organization initially said it would have to halt operation. United Nations officials warned that the current supplies were a drop in the ocean for the need of 2 million Palestinians living in Gaza. Doctors in overwhelmed hospitals on the brink of shutting down have repeatedly warned that waves of new patients injured in the daily bombings and babies relying on oxygen supplies will die if fuel is not brought in. UNRWA was founded in the wake of 1948 Arab-Israeli war to provide essential services for Palestinians who had been made refugees by the conflict. It began its operations in 1950 and its mandate has since been repeatedly renewed.
And the next report is about 10 trucks carrying relief supplies that have been allowed into the Gaza Strip from Egypt a day after thousands broke into depots to take basic supplies. Earlier, Gaza had received the 6th humanitarian aid convoy through the Rafah border crossing from Egypt. Here's the report.
Gaza has received the 6th humanitarian aid convoy through the Rafah border crossing with Egypt. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society announced that it contained 10 trucks carrying food staples, medicines and medical supplies, but no fuel. The shipment brings the total number of aid trucks that entered the Strip since the eruption of the Israeli war to 84. No fuel supplies, however, have ever since been allowed into the war-torn Strip. Gaza has been under unrelenting Israeli airstrikes and a complete blockade for 3 weeks now, with no access to food, power, medicines and fuel. The aid delivered to the Strip falls short of what the territory's 2.3 million population needs to survive. At least 100 trucks would be required per day to meet the needs of Gaza residents, as per the UN estimates. The United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, the UNRWA, continued to sound the alarm that Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are facing an impending humanitarian disaster as Israel continues its airstrikes and blockade against the Strip. While thousands of Palestinians have been injured in the Israeli strikes, hospitals in Gaza are stopping operations due to the lack of fuel caused by the Israeli blockade. The ongoing Israeli strikes and fuel shortages have put around one-third of 35 hospitals in the Gaza Strip out of service.
And joining us over the phone to tell us more about the situation in Gaza right now is Ambassador Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good afternoon to you, sir. Mr. Ambassador? Mr. Ambassador, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Sir, on the 24th day of the war on Gaza, Israel had managed so far to carry out limited ground incursions into the Strip. And what's obvious for the last 24 days has been the heavy bombardment of civilian buildings within the vicinity of hospitals and mosques and churches. What are the latest developments on the ground concerning the crisis, the humanitarian crisis when it comes to Gaza?
It is really a disastrous situation in Gaza because the people are besieged for almost several years now. 2.4 million people living in a big prison, and at the end of the day, they are deprived of the basics of life, that is water and food. And Egypt is stepping in, cannot but step in. A long convoys of support and assistance from Egypt, from many organizations and NGOs in Egypt, are waiting until just a fraction of these convoys is able now to enter Gaza. And I hope that this situation will clear up, leave the convoys enter Gaza, because 2.4 million people are dying. It is actually are dying. It is a tragic situation, and Egypt is doing its best in this respect. And Israeli aggression on the Palestinians, I would say Palestinians, is just horrible act of genocide.
Sir, Mr. Ambassador, so far, the official account is that a little over 8,000 people have lost their lives, in addition to the thousands that have been injured and thousands upon thousands who have been displaced within Gaza itself. Sir, how do you see the situation now? Do you think that given that these are obvious collective punishment and an obvious war crime, will the Israeli side be held accountable for these crimes?
The international community, all the countries in the world should now pressure Israel to stop the aggression and leave the convoys, permit the convoys to enter Gaza. Because when we speak about casualties, hundreds of people, thousands of people are dying. Besides the casualties of the injured, is about 30,000 now. Something tragic. We have not seen it in any tragic war between any country in the world.
Yes.
The Jews or the Israelis have not seen such situation, and they are doing disadvantage to themselves in this way. So the international community should play its role now to stop the aggression on the Palestinians.
But, sir, I mean, the international players, even though many of them do support the Israeli government in their actions, have called on the Israeli government to create some sort of humanitarian corridor for the Palestinian people, including just a phone call with President Abdel Fattah Sisi and the American president, talking about having a complete flow of humanitarian aid enter into Gaza. Do you think that this pressure from the Western Hemisphere will be heeded from the Israeli side?
Well, I hope that it will bring results and positive results very soon, because when the president of Egypt himself is using all his clout and all his good offices in this respect, that is something commendable and is highly appreciated. But it remains to be seen whether the Israelis will stop aggression and leave the convoys reach the Gazans, about 2.4 million hostages in their hands. We have not seen about that in the history of humanity, and I hope that Egypt will listen to the sound of reason to give the people the minimum requirement of livelihood, that is water and food and medications, which Egypt is sending to Gaza.
Mr. Ambassador, also the fact that there's been discussions over relocation of the Palestinian population within the Gaza Strip to Sinai, and obviously Egypt has adamantly said that this is not something that is acceptable in any way or any form. And in fact, even the displacement of Palestinians in general is not something that is acceptable. Do you think that these plans are still something that the Israeli side may be trying to push for?
Egypt is quite clear in this respect. It is white and black. Egypt cannot and will not accept any transfer of the Palestinians to its borders. The Palestinians are also sticking to their own land, and they should not be leaving it and trying to find another place. Israeli occupation, Israeli aggression should stop now, but Egypt in all cases is helping as far as it can without depriving the Palestinians from the right to live in their own land, not in any other part of Sinai.
Yes, sir. Also, part of the problems that the Gazans are facing, or even the international community, is there are reports of UNRWA's staff being killed by these bombardments since October 7th. The number is about 53 UNRWA social workers have died during the Gaza incursions, in addition to the number of journalists and so forth. And obviously the Palestinians who've lost their lives, who are officially at 8,000, but the numbers are probably going to rise once all this settles down. What do you think of the situation again? Do you think that given that there are international bodies who are being affected by this, that the international community will take some sort of action to protect these relief agencies?
Action is needed by the international community, by all the world now at this moment, because every moment people are dying. It's as simple as this and as tragic as this. Mm-hmm. So the international community has a role to play and has a responsibility to stop aggression on the Palestinians in their own land. Mm-hmm. This is occupied territory, as by the United Nations definition. So Israel should stop aggression on the people of this occupied territory and pull out from Gaza, not try to transfer them to any other part of the world, because we are clear in this respect.
Sir, there's also talk, specifically here in Egypt, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi had warned that there is a possibility of the expansion of this conflict, given how drastic the situation and the violence is right now. We're also seeing actions by the Israeli side going through incursions into the West Bank and violating the rights of peoples there as well, killing them, in addition to skirmishes between them and the south of Lebanon. Do you believe, sir, that the threat of it expanding is real if the Israeli side does not decide to de-escalate the situation?
The situation is getting worse every day because of the Israeli aggression. They are expanding the aggression now in Lebanon and Western Bank and Syria, trying to distract attention of what is happening in Gaza. Situation in Gaza is very tragic, and the violence can spread to Israel itself. Many Israelis are leaving Israel to their own countries from Ben Gurion airport in Tel Aviv, and Egypt is clear in this respect. We have to respect the international law. It is a humanitarian situation, and Egypt is doing its best in this respect. But Israel should stop aggression now, because every day means more casualties and more deaths from children, women, and elderly people. They are facing very tragic situation because of this situation, and they have not done nothing wrong in their own country. And this is their own country, and Israel should stop aggression now. International community is bound to support the Palestinians in Gaza so that they can save their lives.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, do you believe that given the movements as well by the Western Hemisphere, when it comes, for instance, like the United States has sent aircraft carriers in addition to a number of Marines to the region, do you think that this could escalate the situation with other regional players?
I think that the Western governments, the officials of the Western governments, have a moral duty in front of their own countries, of their own people. Many Western countries have been submissive to Israeli intimidation, and now they are coming to the conclusion that in their own countries, in France, in Britain, and elsewhere, and in the United States, people are having demonstrations against their own governments. Yes. So the Western governments should do its best now to rectify its unhumanitarian position as far as the aggression on the Palestinians in Gaza.
Okay, Ambassador Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, the former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for joining us over the phone. And before we end this special edition, we're going to take the last report we have on the show, where Philippe Lazarni, the Commissioner General for the UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Work Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East, warned that Gaza is in urgent need of continuous and impactful aid after 3 weeks of intensive Israeli airstrikes on the Strip. Here's the story.
Philippe Lazzarini, Commissioner General of the UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East, warned that Gaza is in urgent need of continuous aid after 3 weeks of intensive Israeli airstrikes on the Strip. Lazzarini also noted that the remaining public services in besieged Gaza are collapsing fast and that people in the Strip, gripped by war, now face food shortages. The head of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees criticized the international community, saying it seems to have turned its back to Gaza. Speaking to reporters in Jerusalem, the UNRWA chief said the agency was very short on fuel in Gaza and needed about 160,000 liters of fuel a day to supply hospitals and bakeries. UNRWA staffers in Gaza are saying their operations are crumbling and that the first time ever they report that now people are hungry. Asked how long supplies were lost, the UNRWA chief said, certainly not more than a few days. He added that 57 employees of the agency in Gaza have been killed since the outbreak of the war on December 7th. Thousands of Gaza residents have sought shelter at UNRWA facilities since Israel launched the strikes in the Gaza Strip 3 weeks ago. More than 7,000 Palestinians were killed and more than 19,000 were wounded in those airstrikes, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza. Israel has cut off all supplies of fuel, water, food, and electricity to 2.3 million Palestinians under bombardment in the Strip.
Well, this brings us to the end of this special edition and special coverage of what's happening in the Gaza Strip. More to come your way here on Now TV, so stay tuned.